Welcome back, folks. We had her on earlier. Jodi Smith is the Director of Lands and Compliance with the Metro Flood Diversion Authority. She's worn many hats here in the state of North Dakota, still works in a capacity for the state of North Dakota, and we'll let her explain that and how that transition might be going. But, there's an article, and I'm a fan of Patrick Springer's. I think he's a good, fair, honest reporter that gets the facts out to you and doesn't tilt his hand as though he's got a slant one way or another. And so when he writes something, I tend to take the time to read it. Patrick wrote an article that got my attention and got a lot of other people's attention because it talked about what Jodi Smith might have to do or might be doing, which is using Quick Take, using eminent domain to build the F-M Diversion. Let's bring her in and talk to her about it. Jodi, good to have you back on Down the Road.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's reference the Springer article. In this, obviously, you've got some people that aren't going to be sending you a Christmas card. I mean, that's just the cold, hard truth. They don't like the approach you're taking. When we talked to you last time, we talked about eminent domain, and you said, hopefully we won't have to do that. That wasn't that long ago that we spoke about this, Jodi. We got to there pretty quick. What happened here?
We have some quick take cases going on, and I think it's important for people to understand quick take and eminent domain are a little bit of a different process. So we do have some of those going through the courts that are related to the channel. And so it's important in-town structures, you have the channel, and then you have the southern embankment with the upstream mitigation area. So the channel portion of it, those are in quick take already if we haven't already acquired the necessary land for the channel. Come about March 1st, so we're still taking the flowage easements to the board next week, so it's February 24th, and those are public meetings if anybody would like to attend. We'll be taking those flowage easements to the board. Then they will approve those flowage easements. We'll send those letters out beginning that next week. Anybody who has land down in the upstream mitigation area will receive a letter from the MFDA on letterhead from their particular land agent that has been assigned to them. At that point in time, we have about a year to get through the negotiation phase. And if we're not through those negotiations, there is a possibility that we would have to go into eminent domain. Some of the landowners down in that area are already negotiating with us. They're already aware that we're coming. They're aware of the flowage easements. And so we do anticipate that some of them will have to go in. Again, it's not my preference that they go into eminent domain. Looking at kind of what the flowage easement offer has been, some of the private appraisals are coming in significantly higher, which I know Patrick referred to in that article. If there's too great of a variance, sometimes when you're negotiating settlements, it gets harder and harder to get us to come together to a point where we can agree. I've done a lot of settlement agreements in my position at the state, a lot of them, and I know the further apart you are, the harder it is to pull you together. Some of them were really not that far off, and I have a lot of hope for a lot of those. I know we have a special board meeting tomorrow. And at that board meeting, we're going to be discussing, I believe, 4 settlement offers that we'd like our land agents to be able to immediately go out and propose to those landowners. And again, I'm very hopeful for those. I think that they're great offers, and I think the board will support them tomorrow. And then again, some of those are sitting in eminent domain right now, and hopefully we can settle those and not have to go into court.
So, Jodi, when you look at some of the offers that are made, how long does an offer like this happen? And I want to give you this example because I spoke to a farmer in the Hickson area just the other night. What a shock that it was at night. Yeah. I stopped at the Knicker and had a beer.
I was like, was there beer involved?
Exactly. And one of the things that he talked to me about was that in the time that this negotiation's been going on, he seemed to make me think that an offer stood for a year and then there was a reevaluation a year later. I don't know if that's right or wrong, so I'm curious about that. But what his point was the value of the land that was being debated had grown over the course of that year. And so that puts me in a position where I'm asking, all right, are you holding out for that? Do you know that this is going to happen anyway? Do you just assume that valuations are going to go up? What's going on here? How does that process work?
Well, I don't know about that particular instance and whether or not those offers have been going on for a year. I'd have to know a little bit more, or maybe I can do a little bit of research. I do know sometimes it takes a bit to get to that settlement agreement. A lot of times when we talk about settlement agreements, there's attorneys involved. And so you're starting to play a little bit of the phone game and trying to get a hold of everybody's legal counsel. I can say that the value of the land has increased for some of those landowners over the course of the past year. The last time you and I had spoken, I had not seen the flowage easement appraisals come in. And in the past 3 weeks, I think it's been since I've been on your show, I have had time to review those flowage easements. And so for some of those areas, particularly if they were deemed to be in a transitional land area, we are seeing an increased value and a pretty significant one. There are other areas where we are seeing an increase. I don't know if you call it significant, but that was something that we anticipated. I mean, we're watching the land sales, right? And they happen regularly, and we're seeing kind of what is that cost per acre happening around in that area and in the region. And so it was something that we anticipated. And again, something that the board will take into consideration next week when they approve these appraisals.
So this process has taken long. And because it's taken long, an individual can look at because it's rural, it's neighbors, they know what each other got. So an individual could have gotten X amount of dollars, and then the other individual here, who's a year later or a year and a half later, gets X plus Y. And now the individual that got X is ticked off. They're mad. How do you deal with that?
You know, we actually had this conversation yesterday at the Diversion Authority, and I don't know that we came up with any solution. Really, that's a determination that the board will need to talk about. Some of the land that's down in that area we've acquired, which is different than the flowage easement. And so acquired means we've purchased that land. The joint boards, whether it's in Minnesota or it's in North Dakota, now own that land and can lease it back either to the original landowner or to somebody else who's interested in leasing that particular area. In that circumstance, it maybe is a little bit of a moot point because land does fluctuate quite a bit. And again, the various boards own that land. When you talk about the flowage easements, that's a little bit more challenging. I know we have issued a couple of flowage easements down there. I don't know the value. I haven't looked at that, what their value was compared to the easements that just kind of came out. But only those landowners who have not settled with us will receive a flowage easement appraisal in the next couple of weeks. So, but I do anticipate there will be a little bit of frustration out there just because the value of land has grown exponentially.
So when you look at, the Springer article, it goes back to something we spoke about, 3 weeks ago, which was, there are people who think many individuals, or at least some individuals, were treated in a special way. They do. It comes through in this article. We spoke to that. We spoke to how you can fix that. And I'm just going to say it because Lord knows they're not inviting me to the country club. There are a lot of people that feel the folks in Oxbow were treated in a very special way because they are individuals that are power players in the city of Fargo, Moorhead, or in the communities. Do you think that's true?
I don't know if that's true because that was before my time, so I didn't really participate in those meetings and conversations. I hope it's not true. I mean, I really hope that, you have to remember the individuals who are making these decisions are elected officials, right? They're your county commissioners. They belong to those communities. And so I trust in them and the fact that they're going to make the decision to treat everybody equally. And I know there's not always been that belief that everybody has been treated equally, and that's unfortunate. That's hard on someone like me. I try to treat everybody equally, and my goal now in this next phase of it, as we get these flowage easements out, is that we follow the same principles for everybody. We follow the same principles. We followed the same methodology to create the appraisals for everybody. And so they may have questions about them. I know we talked last time, we're going to have some community meetings. It'll be March 14th, 15th, 16th on the Minnesota side. And then in the North Dakota side, and there'll be the 20th, 21st over in the Minnesota side. And we'll have our land agents there. I'll be there. Eric Dodds from 82S will be there. We'll have members of the Diversion Authority there. And we'll have our appraisers there. And hopefully we can answer those questions when people come forward and say, how come my neighbor's appraisal ended up at this much and mine didn't? Because there's a lot of variables that come into those. So my hope and goal is really to ensure that everybody's treated equally through this process.
Well, and I think you know, because you've dealt with some sensitive issues like this, that when you go to those public meetings, love is going to be in the air. I have
Yes.
absolutely no doubt about that.